to Why Not Me? Embracing Autism and Mental Health Worldwide. Hosted by Tony Mantor. Broadcasting from the heart of Music City, USA, Nashville, Tennessee. Join us as our guests share their raw, powerful stories. Some will spark laughter, others will move you to tears. These real-life journeys inspire, connect, and remind you that you're never alone. We're igniting a global movement to empower everyone to make a lasting difference by fostering deep awareness, unwavering acceptance, and profound understanding of autism and mental health. Tune in, be inspired, and join us in transforming the world one story at a time. Hi, I'm Tony Mantor. Welcome to Why Not Me? Embracing Autism and Mental Health Worldwide. This is our special event, Crafting Justice, Empowering Autism and Mental Health Through Legislation. Joining us today is Senator Judy Amabile. She's notably passionate about addressing serious mental illness, informed by personal experience, and has advocated for policies like involuntary care in extreme cases, a dedicated mental health tax. With a proven track record of coalition building and impact legislation, she continues to work tirelessly to address Colorado's most pressing challenges. She has a wealth of knowledge, and it's a pleasure to have her join us today. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate you inviting me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I understand that you represent the people in Colorado.
Yeah, I live in Boulder, and I represent Boulder, Louisville, Superior, Gun Barrel, and Niwot.
I understand that your journey to becoming a senator was so that you could help those with serious mental illness. Can you tell our listeners what led you down that journey to help others like you're doing?
I have a son who has schizoaffective disorder. He did fine, mostly fine through high school, but towards the end of high school, he started showing some signs of mental illness. He was pretty heavy marijuana user, starting when he was in 8th grade. We tried a lot of things to get him to quit, and we were not successful. And then in college, he deteriorated further. When he was about 23, he was diagnosed with schizoaffective, with co-occurring substance use disorder and also anxiety, depression. He pretty much has had every diagnosis you can think of. He has been briefly homeless on the street. He was at the homeless shelter in Boulder for about, I want to say 6 months. Maybe it wasn't quite that long. He got thrown out of there. And then he was criminal justice involved.
Okay, can you tell us what led to the involvement with the criminal justice system with him?
Just doing crazy shit. Sorry, you probably can't use that on your podcast.
Oh, that's no problem. That's real life, unfortunately. It's just PG. Looking back, can you tell us some of the things you might have seen that now you look at and that was just a precursor to what was coming? Because I've been told many times that psychosis does evolve over a certain period of time within young men. What led you to believe that he might have had this until he got fully diagnosed?
Well, I mean, he started being sort of disconnected from reality. Like he was going on study abroad in college. And he said to his dad and me, he was going to Australia. And he said, "Did you guys know that Australia isn't even in America?" And it was like, that's a very odd thing for this pretty well-educated person who's going to Australia to say. And then he had a lot of paranoia. He thought that some of his classmates were trying to hurt him. You know, his former high school friends were trying to hurt him. And then the final thing that he told me about was he said that people could hear his thoughts. And I Googled that. That's called thought broadcasting. And that is a hallmark of schizophrenia. And he did have also a lot of mood swings, mood disorder. So he would get super depressed. He did attempt suicide. I would say his suicide attempts were somewhat half-hearted, but nonetheless, pretty scary.
Yeah, I can just imagine. So through all this process, I mean, it's the big unknown. You just don't understand what's happening. you're only going by Google and what the doctors are telling you, but it's still very confusing. So how did that affect your family?
Yeah. So it's a train wreck for your whole family, partly because everybody's mad at the person who's sick. And it feels manipulative. It feels like they're just not trying. Like it is really hard to understand what's going on and to have empathy and compassion for your own child, let alone his brothers. So I actually, and it sounds kind of cliche, but one of my sisters insisted that we take this class together at the National Alliance for Mental Illness. They had a class called Family-to-Family in Boulder, and it was incredibly eye-opening for me. Like I thought I'm pretty well informed, but sitting in a room for 12 weeks with a bunch of other people who had loved ones who had all kinds of different stories, but also some pretty similar stories, and seeing how angry people were at the beginning and like looking at that and thinking, well, that seems like the wrong response. And then internalizing that and saying, well, I'm doing that too. That is what the class is kind of about, is some education, then moving you to empathy, not just for your person, but for other people. And then finally to advocacy for your person, and then also advocacy for others.
When you came out of the class, how did it affect you? And then how did you move forward from it?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely understood a lot more about the disease. I was able to get to a way more empathy, a place of empathy for my kid. He needed that, but also I really needed that.
Yes, I can understand that, because as much as it affects the person that's afflicted, it also affects the people that surround him. Then add to it if you don't have the understanding, or if you do have the understanding, it is still a difficult place to navigate through.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, so the other thing is that you go, okay, I'm not alone. And what's happening in my family isn't unique. There are some unique elements, I'm sure, but it's happening to a lot of people. And then you don't feel quite so isolated either, because it is very isolating. I mean, they talk about, I haven't heard this in a long time, but it's the no casserole disease. So you tell your friend, oh, my kid is in jail. He had a psychotic break and pushed somebody down. They don't come over with a casserole. They don't have any idea how to respond to that. Or my kid's in the hospital. Just to be clear, my kid was never in jail. He pled his case. He got probation. He never had to go to jail. He was in the hospital a lot. And again, they didn't come over with casseroles. Nobody sent flowers. It is really different. And also people try to minimize it. Oh, he's fine. He'll be fine. I saw him the other day and he seemed fine. And they don't do that with other illnesses. You don't have to defend the fact that the person is sick. People just accept what you tell them.
Yes, very much like I had a person on my podcast a few months ago, good sized guy, very healthy. He says, if I tell him I'm autistic, they go, oh, you don't look autistic. But he says, if I was to tell them I had cancer, they'd be going, oh, how can I help?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that also brings up this other thing in my head. People say, oh, these schizophrenics. We don't say these cancers. He is a person who has schizophrenia. And it's a funny wordsmith thing. Like, I don't really love that, but it actually really sticks when people say that, because he's not schizophrenic. He's my kid and he has schizophrenia.
So once you got through all this, what ultimately led for you to run and get into the Senate?
Well, okay, so I was in the House first, just to be clear. I was in the House for 4 years. And so what led me to do that?
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Well, it was probably a number of things, but Boulder decided to run a tax to build an alternative sentencing facility at the jail so that they could do work release. And I wrote an op-ed that said, why are we doing that when the way to keep people out of jail is to build a hospital, a continuum of care, so that we can actually help people get better? Let's take our tax money and build a hospital. The alternative sentencing facility tax passed with like 85% of the vote. So clearly no one was on my team. I said, I'm voting no on this because it's the wrong thing to do. But a woman who had run Mental Health Partners and who was involved with NAMI and the NAMI Policy Committee reached out to me, Phoebe Norton is her name, and said, will you be on our policy committee? So I did that. We went around and met with all these different people, legislators and county commissioners and city council people. It did become really clear that none of these people had this kind of experience. And then I got on the board of Mental Health Colorado, went down there and said, hey, I want to, work on policy. Andrew Romanoff was running it at the time, and he kind of sussed me out and said, well, you can be on our board. So I was on the board, but I also did get to work on policy. And that was really eye-opening and important to see how hard it is to even pass a simple change in policy, and how many people are interested and how many different points of view there are on every little thing. So I did that just for a short while. And then I don't know, the seat was open. And I testified on the red flag law in 2019. And I told this story about how my kid had said he wanted to get a gun so he could kill himself. And then I saw on his debit card that he had made a purchase, like a $10 or $15 purchase at the gun shop. And so his dad and I went running down there and we're like, what's happening? And they said, well, your person was here and he's going to buy a gun, and his background check didn't come back instantly. So this is the gun. And they showed us the gun. And they said, we're just waiting for his paperwork to come back. We, cried and carried on. And they said, okay, we won't sell the gun. And they wrote on the paperwork not to sell it to him. But I wanted to tell that story. So I get down there and I'm waiting for 5 hours to testify, and it's my turn. I'm on a panel with some other people. And I said, the committee members were getting some food. And I said, well, I see you all got dinner, and I just want you to know that in the cheap seats back here, we didn't get any food. And Tom Sullivan, it was a joke. And Tom Sullivan said to me, well, if you want to eat, you got to run.
You just brought up policies and how difficult it is. I've talked with senators and legislators, as well as former U.S. House of Representatives, and you've got lived experience. Some of these people don't have, although some do. I would be interested to hear your perspective. Number one, how does that make a difference for you? Even though you have the lived experience, you're having to deal with legislators that do not. They only hear from people that give them their perspectives. How do you bridge that gap for those that do not understand so that they can get on board and make legislation that will help everyone?
Yeah, it's hard, actually. And also, I have my perspective. And so what I've figured out is that not everybody, even if they have lived experience, they don't necessarily agree about the way forward. So, for example, people who I've met along the way, some of them have deep-seated mistrust for their family. And, I come at it from the perspective of I'm trying to help, and the system is pushing me away at every turn. I have hundreds of families that I've talked to, and there's a group called Mad Moms that got 400 families now involved. And we all have this same experience, which is we're not allowed to participate in a way that would be more helpful. And nobody wants to talk to us until it's time to pay the bill and they realize the person isn't going to be able to navigate that, or until they just need somebody to come pick them up because they're releasing them from a hospital or that kind of thing. That's been incredibly frustrating. And then, to have this other experience of people who don't want that. They don't want their family to participate. They feel like where they are is maybe their family's fault. So navigating that.
A lot of states have what they call AOT. Is this something that is on your plate and you're trying to push and get changed as well?
I've been beating this drum. I do work on a lot of criminal justice stuff, but I have been beating this drum about you have to have a good, solid civil system and a way to get people committed, short-term commitment, a way to have people go, even if they don't think they want to get treatment. So I've been working on all this criminal justice stuff, and we've been working on how to get people out of jail. But it's like, if you get somebody out of jail, but you never get them care, they just come back. They just cycle in and out of this system. The answer, in my opinion, is to get them into care. And that might mean a civil commitment. Maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's 3 weeks. I don't know. It depends on the person. But we have to at least be open to the idea that somebody might need to spend months trying to figure out what the right medication is and getting stabilized and getting other things that might help them to get better, getting, eating nutritious food and all kinds of things. So, but I've made a little headway on that. The other day, one of the attorneys who I work with a lot said to me, okay, you're right. I'm ready to work on that. Because the knee-jerk thing is that's just another way of locking people up. But I don't want to just throw people into poorhouses. I want there to be good care, because people who get good care get better. Not everybody, but a lot of people do. And also, we have to admit that some people are never going to get better. They can't live out in the world on their own. And so we had to figure out something for them too.
Yeah, that's a tough thing to acknowledge and admit. Sometimes, and most times, when you're dealing with the House and the Senate, they are always looking at bottom dollar. In other words, budget. How can they not see, by not fixing this, or at least by not trying to fix this, that it's just going to cost the taxpayers millions and millions of dollars? And many times, if they can fix it, these people can be diverted to other places, and most always, the legal system will never see them again. How can we get that put in place?
I'll just say, like here in Colorado, one of the big things that we're dealing with is this competency waitlist. So every year, we have hundreds of people who are sitting in jail waiting for a bed at the state hospital to get their competency restored so that they can proceed with their legal case. Competency restoration isn't treatment for your mental illness. It's just a workbook. And as soon as you can parrot back what's in the workbook, you're good to go, and then your case can proceed. And we are under this consent decree because we got sued, and we're spending $12 million a year on this consent decree. And the legislators have bought into this idea of we just have to make this competency waitlist go away. So, we put $80 million into beds, more beds, surge beds at private mental health hospitals to make the waitlist go away. And what happened is we went from 450 to 250 and then 350, and we're headed back up to 450 because those people and new people are just cycling around. And new people who are becoming sick, there's no civil system for them to get care before they ever get into the criminal justice system. Many of us were like, no, we should take half of the surge bed money and put it into civil beds. And then let's get people into that system sooner. And, we just couldn't win the day because everybody is just burdened with this short-term thinking. So if the benefits come down the road, I don't know if it's because we have term limits or I'm not sure, but no one wants to wait to see what might come down the road. They just want a fix right now. And of course, that's an absurd way to go about it. And we're seeing now, of course, that it doesn't work. It didn't work for us. It wasn't the way. And I've been really trying to help people understand about what this cycling is, this thing that I heard a podcast out of Washington that was called The Churn. And if we don't interrupt this churn, we're not fixing anything. And now that we're looking at Medicaid dollars being reduced, it's just going to get a lot worse. And we're going to have a lot more people ending up in jail and in homelessness. And we're going to have a much longer list for the state hospital.
Yeah, and I heard, and I can't remember where I heard it, that decades ago we had X amount of beds, and it seems like each decade the beds are getting smaller and smaller in availability. And because of that, there are no facilities that are able to take the people that actually need the help. Then because of that, They find ways to put them back on the street, so they wind up living on the street, in a homeless shelter, or unfortunately incarcerated. We have to find a way to educate these people. A lot of these people are, of course, our representatives, the ones that are elected and serve to help our communities. It seems like it's a vicious circle to get them to understand, kind of like it's a vicious circle, that churn podcast that you just mentioned.
Yeah. I think that we are having a dawning awareness. Like California tried to do this care courts thing. I don't think it's been very effective. And I'm not exactly sure why, but I did go with a group of people from Colorado to look at that. They had a meeting with all these families and advocates, and the families wanted involuntary commitment, and the advocates did not want involuntary commitment. So they ended up not having involuntary commitment. They have voluntary commitment, and they've poured a bunch of money into that system, but I don't know that it's really helping, or it's not helping in the way that people had hoped.
Yeah, that's very tough. Without some sort of AOT, some sort of safety net, what do? Many times you will hear stories of people getting picked up by the police, taken to the hospital. Then the doctors say that he's not a threat to himself or others at this point in time, so their hands are tied and they can't do anything. It's sad that their hands are tied because they may not be a threat to themselves or others at that point in time, but give them a few hours, a few days, or whatever time frame, and they could be. We need to find a way to help these people so that they don't wind up in that type of situation.
Yeah. Well, okay, so this year we passed a bill. Right now in Colorado, if you are a hospital and you have somebody and you keep them and they're on Medicaid and you keep them for more than 15 days, you don't get paid for any of this stay. So you have to get them out of there before the 15 days are up in order to get paid. And if the person is in 3 different hospitals for 5 or 6 days in each hospital, none of the hospitals get paid. And they don't even know the person was in a different hospital because we don't have good data sharing. But we got a waiver from the federal government for Medicaid that says now, going forward, a hospital can keep you for up to 60 days. So in this bill that we passed this year, it says it codifies this waiver that allows a hospital to get paid for up to 60 days. And it says if somebody's in your hospital on a short term, a 3-day hold, an M1, you have to evaluate them for a longer term stay. And this year we'll maybe come back and say, at least one of the things you have to consider is their history. See if maybe they qualify. So how many times were they on an M1 hold? How many times were they in jail previously? Have they been homeless? Like, these things should factor into this decision about whether you qualify. It shouldn't just be, what's happening in that exact moment.
Yeah, I totally agree with you 100%. So in closing, we've covered numerous things here, all very important topics. So this is a very broad question, one that might not have a perfect answer, but it has to be asked. So what do? We have many of the things that we talked about, plus the things that you brought up, and it seems like a lot of things are just so restrictive in helping these people. Even if they're not asking for it, they still need this help. So how do we get past some of these barriers so that we can actually do what we're trying to do, and that's help people that need the help?
Well, I'll just start with this. Beds. We need beds, and we don't have them. We need beds, and we need a continuum of care. So we need hospital beds, we need transitional living homes, which Colorado we are building some of those. We need group homes, we need supportive housing, all of that. We need this continuum of care so that somebody who has serious mental illness is getting cared for the rest of their life in the way that is the least restrictive that they need. We do that with people who have diabetes, or people who have severe autism, or people who have, heart disease. We take care of them and we help them and we give them what they need. And we need to do that with mental illness. Now, in terms of how do we find the money to do all of that? I don't know. I get in my car at night and I think, what have we done? In the time I've been there, we've passed a lot of bills on this topic. And I'm not sure if we've helped anybody or not.
Yeah, I get it. I was speaking with a member of the House of Representatives in Iowa just the other day. They passed a bill 100%. Everybody voted for it. Got to the Senate, it got killed. So now they have to wait till next year to reintroduce the bill again and hope that it passes. If there was one person that needed that passed, just one, then the Senate failed them.
Yep.
We have to find a way to get wins instead of losses.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I have a pretty good track record of wins on the mental health stuff.
That's great.
And a big part of that is I've just been fortunate to work with people who are willing to come together. So the criminal justice stuff, the public defender's office and the DA's office, their legislative people are reasonable people who want to get to a compromise, who would rather see something happen than nothing. So we've had good luck with that. But the knock it out of the ballpark big changes are really hard to come by.
Yeah, that's understandable. Well, this has been a great conversation, great information. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to care about this.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks again. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen to our show today. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. If you know someone who has a story to share, tell them to contact us at whynotme.world. One last thing, spread the word about Why Not Me, our conversations, our inspiring guests that show you are not alone in this world.